Hello lovers, welcome to the Butterfly Effect podcast hosted by myself, Lauren Amy. This is for those who are ready to take up space, who are living a soft life loudly and are ready to savor the sweetness in each moment. Here we're going to embrace transformation, the beauty of the in-between and the magic of becoming. So pull up a seat and listen in because life is delicious and it's about goddamn time we eat it up. Hello stunners, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. We have a calmer start to the podcast this week. You know, we're taking things nice and easy. No George Michael, unfortunately, much to everyone's disappointment, I'm sure. But the freedom theme continues. I hope you did enjoy celebrating Freedom Day with me last week. And I hope you did, in fact, choose one act of freedom, one act of reclamation, whatever that meant for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you fully leaned into it. I hope that was maybe the catalyst for something, I don't know, different to happen. Another step in your becoming, maybe, just maybe, I don't know. But the thing I want to talk about this week, obviously I'm still honoring freedom, right? Still reclaiming our freedom, okay? The way in which I want to talk about it this week is actually the fact that I feel like I've been coming across quite a bit of resistance recently. And obviously, this month in our yoga classes, both online and in person, we have the theme of limitless. I'm inviting everyone to become unbound, both on and off the mat, finding that freedom in movement, finding that freedom in breath, finding that freedom in expression, and just exploring that as much as we wish to. Nothing holding you back. No need to make yourself small. You cannot be contained in any kind of box. Just continuing to push through our own past fears, our own limiting beliefs, others' expectations, and really see if we can tap in to that limitless self within, right? And it's funny. It's actually quite comical when I think about it, because I think the freer I'm allowing myself to be, the more me I'm becoming, the more resistance I'm also facing. It's almost like the bigger you become, the more you'll be asked to shrink, you know? And I think this is really interesting because I've seen before, that you're about to achieve or witness something great. You're on the run up to something great when it feels like everything is testing you and it feels like things are falling apart, And I'm like, okay, maybe I'm really approaching something here. Maybe something is on its way. And that's why this resistance is here. And I just have to continue showing up with what I've set out to do. And it's almost like this hidden cost of becoming limitless. And it's a reminder that expansion, you're becoming, can come with a little bit of friction. Or a lot of friction, in my case. Over the past few weeks, I've discussed it here and there. But actually, when I line things up side by side, I'm like, woof. It's been a lot, It's been a lot. So it all started with a viral video where received a lot of backlash for simply experiencing joy at summer solstice at Stonehenge, which Bex and I did a little debrief episode on. I don't need to go into that anymore. But that was kind of like the first real thing where I noticed, you're enjoying life a little bit too much, You're embracing joy a little bit too much, get back in your rock box a little bit. And I was like, oof, that doesn't feel nice. I don't like that. And it was also my first time of really experiencing any kind of hate to that level. So yeah, that was a very confronting, highlighting, exposing experience, I guess. All right. And then from that, we persevere. Silly Girl Summer is going to continue and has continued, right? So I've continued to find fun little things for me and my sillies to do. And I arranged a post-yoga swim session. And yeah, fair enough. I might have got in trouble for that one. I might have broken a little rule there. So basically, I got told that we can't use the lake after our yoga sessions and we're not allowed due to health and safety, yada, yada. I get it. Cool. I have to respect that. I have to respect that they are regulations in place. So as much as I want to embrace Silly Girl Summer, and as much in my mind that It's a lake. We're all adults. We all know how to swim. We're all being okay. We're not swimming out for miles. We're just staying in a very like central circle. As much as I know that, I have to respect that there are regulations in place at this particular spot where I work and where we were practicing yoga outside. Okay, cool. But it did feel like a little of another resistance there, another act where she's like, oh, don't have too much fun, get back in your box a little bit. So yeah, that was the other thing. And then on Freedom Day itself, I'm out paddleboarding. We all know that's my favourite thing in the world. And I get hounded by teenagers. I get hounded by these really angry teenagers that are also like, she looks like she's having a great time on her own. How dare she? We're going to make this more difficult for her. We're going to ridicule her. We're going to harass her. We're going to bully her. We're going to threaten her. If you don't know what happened, brief little recap. I was literally paddleboarding, and there's always, there's very often kids jumping and swimming in the river, which is always lovely. I've always thought, that's a beautiful thing to witness, seeing kids enjoy the outdoors when it's warm outside rather than being stuck inside behind their screens. I'd much prefer them to see them outside. However, this was the first instance where I'm like, kiddos, get back inside because you're ruining it for everyone. And yeah, I was just paddling back home, and these kids threatened to swim over to tip me off my board. And before I knew it, there's like 5 or 6 of them swimming over. And yeah, it felt like a real threat in that moment. And I did fear. And I haven't felt fear like that in a long time. And this is from teenagers. And I was like, am I really a 31-year-old woman getting harassed and bullied by teenagers right now? It immediately put me back on that school playground. I immediately felt small, and I don't know, I guess part of me felt like embarrassed, but also I just felt like I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe that this was happening. I'm having to get out the way of teenagers. I'm having to paddle as fast as I can so they can't reach me because they are threatening me. I don't think I've ever been threatened like that in my life. I know it might sound silly because, the board floats. So if I did get tipped off the board, nothing would really happen. I'm a confident swimmer. But again, you just don't know. And I don't feel like that's the point of it, But anyway, that's another thing that happened. And that really did rattle me for quite some time. And yeah, I nearly completely changed my paddleboarding spot, my location, but fortunately was able to pull it back around. A couple of days later with the Silly Girls, we did a Silly Girl sunset paddle in that same spot. And I prayed and prayed and prayed there was going to be no teenagers there. And for once, the universe listened to me. And I think that was actually a little reward, because those teenagers there who were threatening me and, again, trying to limit me in my freedom. That was a challenge for me to continue pushing through, to not let them put me back in that box, So this is what I'm getting at. This is what I've been experiencing recently. I've been attempting to live this full, vibrant life to the best of my ability. And it's like I've got to the point now, I've been working on this for a good few years now, but it's like I've got to the point now where I'm facing real resistance. And it's like you have to meet yourself in the resistance. You have to meet yourself there and you think, okay, am I going to let this change the direction completely and send me a completely wrong direction that I wasn't originally hoping for? Or am I going to continue regardless and maybe just move around this little obstacle or divert or pivot just slightly, knowing that I'm still moving towards that goal. I'm still becoming this version of me that I feel fully content and fully happy with. It's like a moment, in that moment you have to decide. Are you going to let the resistance block you? Or are you going to dig in and persevere regardless? And like these instances, and it's not just these instances actually, there's been many others behind the scenes that are probably a lot smaller, but still it's felt like a lot of the time where I felt this friction. And there have been moments where I've then started to question myself, like, should I be doing this? Should I be this loud about this? Should I tone it down? Should I focus on something else? Should I be doing X, Y, Z, all of the above? You know what I mean? And I was doing some journaling and I was just like sitting with the thoughts a little bit. And this quote came to mind where it's like, every time I become a little bit more myself, life seems to ask, are you sure? And I always thought that was the universe testing me, throwing me another little hurdle just to see, let's just see how she handles it, you know? And I'm like, universe, please, I'm all out of tests, you know? Come on, I'm all out of character development, at least for now, right? But then it kind of settled in my head that it's not because the universe is testing you, and it's not because I'm on the wrong path, but it's because becoming more visible means also becoming more noticeable. And I think I'm at this point where I'm probably the most seen I've ever been, the most visible I've ever been, and it feels different. And I don't mean visible, I don't mean notable by, you know, like followers on social media or number of people in classes and stuff like that. I just feel like what I stand for, what it is that I'm trying to do, is starting to be noticed by people. And it's actually starting to be noticed by the systems around me, the systems in which I exist. And it's also my own fears noticing it. It's my own limiting beliefs noticing this witnessing. I don't know if that makes sense. In my head it does. Again, this is also like a bit of exposure therapy for me. This is like a live journaling session where it's all these thoughts in my head and it's just coming out on the podcast, and maybe this resonates. Maybe you are also moving through a time of expansion, but you're coming across these little contractions, these little boundaries or barriers. And it's like, again, we're constantly being asked, are you sure? You sure about this? Is this the way you want to go? Maybe this comfort zone back here you want to retreat back to because that's what feels safe, that's what feels familiar. And I think that's often where this resistance comes about, because we like the familiar, we like what feels comfortable. And when you see someone embracing the fullness of life and the vibrancy of life, and that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's you then being forced to notice your own resistance, your own limiting beliefs, your own fears. If I think about it, I think the past few years I've been steadily expanding in different ways. And yes, there's been series of little retractions, little contractions here and there where I've needed to draw in, needed to hunker back down, needed to recenter, reground. But overall, it's been this expansion. It's been lovely. It's been this becoming. Lovely, okay? But it's almost like this, if you imagine it like a balloon, I'm almost like imagining myself as a balloon, right? You can't be expanding all the while. This is something I say in class recently. You can't be expanding all the while, because if you go too quickly, that balloon will burst, it will pop, right? There's got to be a series of contractions. There's got to be a series of softening amongst that expansion rather. So if you were to continue expanding all the while at a certain rate, that's when we lead to things like burnout, or it's where we're constantly chasing the next dopamine hit of an expansion, of an achievement, of a realization, of a development, you know what I mean? So it's like we have to allow for these little contractions. And the one thing I love to say in practice is that after an expansion must follow a contraction. After a contraction must follow an expansion. So literally the way in which our breath works, okay? The inhale, the diaphragm shifts down, creating space for the lungs to inflate, the ribs expand, the chest, the collarbones lift. There is that expansion, literally like that inflation, like a balloon. But then you've got to release it too. You've then got to sigh it all out. You've then got to let it all go. You've got to allow for that softening. So whilst I think the past few years have been this expansion, I'm now coming across this contraction, and it's minimal, it's small, and it's asking me whether I'm sure. It's asking me whether I'm certain about this. It's asking me whether I want to persevere with this. And I know the answer is yes. I know I want to continue with this becoming, with this trajectory. But the question is interesting. And it's allowing me to see the ways in which your growth, your becoming is actually uncomfortable. And we romanticize that becoming so much. We romanticize this freedom so much. I do it myself, of how it feels light and exciting and peaceful. And there's this possibility, there's this potential. But there are moments where it's confronting, where it's awkward. You might feel misunderstood. People project their own fears and insecurities onto you, and you have to then kind of bear that, brace that. And in order to fully grow and fully become, you have to lose that familiarity. You have to lose that initial comfort in order to find comfort elsewhere. So whilst in some ways I think becoming more and more myself has felt wonderful, magical, like I wouldn't change it for anything, but I think there was a part of me that thought becoming myself would mean my life was easier. But actually, it's starting to really land for me that becoming more and more yourself means becoming more visible. When you care less about what other people think and societal expectations, people notice, systems notice, and there'll be little signs that will want to question you and be like, are you sure about this? And again, that's when you have to decide whether you're going to let it steer you in a completely different direction, or whether you pivot or move around it and persevere regardless. So if you are someone that's also meeting this resistance, if you're coming across this, inner conflict where you're wanting to embrace your freedom, you're wanting to really tap into that limitless version of yourself, I guess it's reminding you that when you come across resistance, it doesn't mean stop what you're doing, all right? Maybe it's a pause. Maybe it's just that slight softening. Maybe it's a reevaluation. And resistance in itself is still very much vital information. It's feedback. And listening to that feedback, not necessarily in terms of like how well you're doing in your becoming, but maybe it's allowing you to realize the ways in which you might be forcing something or rushing something. But again, really that resistance is information. That's when you are approaching the edges of your comfort zone. And again, that expansion is your comfort zone expanding, okay? And I think these little moments of resistances and those little contractions are actually just reminding you to check in. And it's not necessarily asking like, is this hard, or is this forced, or is this unnecessary or unnatural? Maybe it's just asking you the question, does this still feel true? Does the way in which I'm becoming still feel true to me? Not necessarily true to anyone else, because again, that's what people prefer you to be, right? And I'm not referencing anyone in particular, okay? But there is a sense that there's some out there who prefer the version of you that makes sense to them, that makes them feel more familiar and them feel more comfortable. And that might be the quieter version of you. That might be the more apologetic version of you. It's the version of you that doesn't make them question themselves. But here's the thing, the moment you stop apologizing, and the moment you realize you don't have to always make yourself small and quiet to appease other people, some people become uncomfortable with that. But that discomfort belongs to them, not you. Another quote I've seen recently is how joy can be deliciously provocative. What a word, provocative. Joy can be deliciously provocative, not because it's offensive, but because it's disruptive. It disrupts the default. It breaks through the monotony, the mundanity of habits, patterns that we kind of settle into, right? I think it even comes back to this act of rebellion. You remember a few weeks ago, or even a few months ago, when I was encouraging you all to seek out that small spark of rebellion? Again, that act of rebellion, that is joy. I think this is a little reminder of that, a reminder that joy can be this provocative, rebellious act. And it doesn't mean stop embracing joy. It doesn't mean putting it back in that box. It actually means keep doing it anyway. Keep celebrating joy anyway. Keep dancing anyway. Keep singing anyway. Keep taking up space anyway. Keep reaching for your freedom anyway. I think it more often than not, it's someone else's freedom that reminds us of the ways in which we have abandoned our own. And I think that's maybe why I'm coming across this resistance recently. Because it's my freedom. It's the way in which I take up space. It's the way in which I am celebrating joy that is reminding others of the ways in which they have abandoned their own freedom and their own capacity for joy. And that's really unfortunate. You know, I don't want to be causing anyone to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be causing any kind of upset. But also, I don't want to sacrifice myself and my joy in the meantime. So what it kind of feels like there's another breakthrough coming. I don't know what that means. Because one thing else that I'll know about myself is I'm a tenacious little fucker. This resistance, it can keep coming at me, sure. But I will continue persevering because I've had a taste of that freedom. I've seen how joyful things can be. And I just really want to be like, you know, universe, show me how good it gets. And I will continue to push through the edges of this comfort zone in order to further taste, further savor how good, how sweet life can get. And it's often been said to me before that when things feel the most chaotic, the most messy, I feel like that's when you feel like you're doing something right. You're approaching something big, something huge, something potentially life-changing. Who knows? Sometimes the biggest chapters in life happen after the messiest moments. Not because you have to move through the struggle to achieve success, but because the struggle is kind of asking you whether you're still willing to choose yourself, even amongst all of this. And I am. So again, honeys, if you're approaching resistance, or if you just feel like things aren't necessarily falling into place in the way that you hoped and you're having to take these series of pivots here and there, you're constantly adjusting, you're constantly reevaluating, just remind yourself that that resistance isn't asking you to stop. Perhaps it's just actually asking or reminding you that, or telling you that you are arriving somewhere that you have never been before yet. And maybe becoming our limitless, free, fulfilled self isn't about having no boundaries and no fears whatsoever, but it's not letting that fear become the boundary, become the resistance. Perhaps that moment of resistance is just inviting you to choose yourself one more time. Take up space one more time. Speaking just one more truth. Dancing just that little bit louder, singing just that little bit louder, just one more time. And perhaps one more time is all that's needed. Resistance doesn't have to have the final say, and nor do you need to fight back at it in return. Perhaps that resistance is a reminder that you are exactly where you need to be, and you're just tentatively approaching the edge of your comfort zone. You're approaching a place, a version of you that you haven't met before. You're growing into a version of you that no longer fits the old boxes that were previously more acceptable. Give yourself permission to become uncontainable, to become unbound. Meet that resistance, meet it with a smile, treat it as information, and continue to move in a way that feels true to you. And yeah, I hope that helped in some way. Whether you're coming across resistance or whether you're not, but we're all on this journey of becoming, aren't we, right? So yeah, trust in your own becoming, trust in your own evolution. Leave behind the old boxes that once felt really comfortable, really safe, but also those old boxes, they stopped serving you a long time ago. So here we are, huns, meeting ourselves in the resistance. And of course, continuing to trust in the natural unfolding of all things and trusting in your own becoming all the while. All right, honeys, I'm going to wrap that one up there. Nice. I hope you enjoyed that one. And I shall see you in next week's episode, of course. Come join me over on Patreon, of course. Come join me in person, of course. And we've got a retreat coming up in September, of course, our autumn equinox retreat. So yeah, if all of this is landing and you want a little bit more, there's plenty of opportunity to meet me on the mat, online or in person, at an event or in a class or anywhere at all. Make sure we're continuing that silly girl summer, because this time is yours. This life is yours. And I love to see you thrive. All right, on that note, I'm going to head on out. Love you lot, stunners. Go thrive. All right, bye. Mwah. Alright, stunners, thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Butterfly Effect podcast. I hope it has left you feeling suitably inspired. And as always, please don't forget to rate and review, like and subscribe, all those lovely things, as not only does this help the podcast grow, but it also helps us to reach more beautiful souls who need to hear these conversations. And of course, come hang out with me over on Instagram and TikTok at LaurenAmyYD, and follow the pod at butterflyeffect.pod. You can also dive deeper into yoga, meditations, poetry, and so much more with me over on Patreon. Until next time, keep living a soft life loudly, because you know you deserve it, and I'll see you in the next episode. Mwah!